5 years ago, I took the $100,000 divorce settlement from his mother and left town. 5 years later, I found out that he had been in a car accident trying to stop me from leaving, nearly losing his leg. I regret it so much now. After we reunited, I knew I would never let him go again. I explained my predicament to him. Though his eyes were filled with longing, he spoke in the gentlest voice, yet his words were the most heartless. "Diana, I will never forgive you." I never imagined that reuniting with Rowan would be such a melodramatic scene. I was waiting at the fever clinic with my child. Mara kept crying and calling out, "Mommy, Mommy." While I was frantically trying to calm her down, he suddenly appeared in front of me. "Diana, you still know how to come back." He strode toward me with long strides, then grabbed my wrist tightly, as if he had found a lost treasure. My heart almost stopped beating because of his reaction. The next moment, the girl in his arms cried out "Mom" in a soft voice, and that sound instantly shattered all the excitement of their reunion. He looked at the child in my arms, his gaze intense and scrutinizing. Then his eyes reddened, and his voice trembled. "Whose is this?" As I opened my mouth, Mara in my arms started crying again. "Mommy, I want Daddy. I want Daddy to come back and be with Mara." Mara had a fever, so she was naturally a little temperamental. I smiled apologetically at him. "Mara, be good. Daddy is on a business trip." I tried to comfort my child, but he just stood quietly in front of us, unresponsive for a long time. After a while, he stopped communicating with me, his expression finally replaced by indifference, and he turned away without a word. "Rowan." I called out to him in a trembling voice. He paused for a moment, but continued walking without looking back. He walked quickly, his footsteps unsteady. I knew he was still angry with me. It had been 5 years, how could he be polite to me? On Monday, I reported to my new company. In the conference room, the moment Rowan saw me in the corner, he didn't hide the emotion in his eyes and stared straight at me. His gaze was intense and inquisitive, so much so that HR misunderstood his intentions and introduced me to him. "Mr. Rowan, this is the new legal counsel." HR handed him my resume, but he glanced at it and said nothing. After the meeting, he was still left behind. "Why are you here?" His tone was cold, and his eyes were filled with chill. "Because you're here." I admit that I am being extremely thick-skinned right now, but I don't want to say something that I don't mean. It's such a big company, so it's impossible that I knew nothing about the company or him before coming here. But he just looked at me and smiled, a smile full of mockery. "Diana, what do you mean? Are you trying to rekindle our old flame?" I looked at him with teary eyes, wanting to tell him how much I had missed him all these years, but the next second he pushed me away. "You really do think highly of yourself." I ignored the turmoil in my heart and looked into his bloodshot eyes. "I miss you," I said. "Diana, it's been 5 years. Do you think I'm stupid?" I didn't expect Rowan to react so angrily. He clutched my resume and glared at me with a fierce look in his eyes. "You miss me? Is that what you mean when you say you miss me? Diana, it was you who didn't care about my feelings at all, took the 1 million my mother gave you, left so casually, went abroad to polish her image, got married, and had children. Now you come back and tell me you miss me?" "No, Rowan, I had no choice about the $1 million. Let me explain." I panicked and reached for his hand, but he coldly rejected me. "No choice? Then tell me, is that child mine, or yours and someone else's?" "A child?" When he saw Mara at the hospital that day, he wouldn't think Mara was his child and suspect that I had run away with her, would he? I know what he's questioning. We were so close back then, and I suddenly left. It's understandable that he would suspect Mara's origins. But this isn't a soap opera. Mara isn't your child, but she's not. Enough, Diana. How dare you bring someone else's child into this and talk to me about feelings? Rowan. Get out. At that moment, the conference room door opened, and a stunning figure appeared at the doorway. "Mr. Rowan, someone is here to see you." Then the woman's gaze fell on me, and when she saw me, her eyes were filled with a look of surprise. I stood in the corner watching them. Rowan pressed his forehead, pushed himself up from the table, and stood up, looking somewhat strained. When he reached the door, his steps were unsteady, and his female assistant let out a cry and reached out to support him. He did not refuse. At that moment, I suddenly remembered that he had always been distant with others, so when had he ever been so intimate with another woman? On my first day at work, I was busy until 9 o'clock at night. As soon as I stepped out of the elevator, I was embraced by something warm. I looked down and saw Mara with sparkling eyes, reaching out her hands to me and calling out in a baby voice, "Mommy, hold me." I bent down and picked her up. The little girl wrapped her chubby little arms around my neck. All the fatigue from the day melted away. "Why didn't you listen? Did you ask Lena to bring you to find me again?" I tickled her red nose, and Mara snuggled into my arms, giggling. At that moment, Rowan and his stunning assistant emerged from the elevator. The female assistant was not intimidated by Rowan's presence. When she saw Mara and me, she walked straight over and teased Mara. "This girl is really pretty, Diana. She looks just like you." Then she turned back to look at Rowan, her gaze shifting back and forth between Mara and Rowan. She observed them for a long time, then finally sighed softly, shook her head slightly, and stood back next to Rowan. She should have been able to find some similarities between Mara and Rowan, but unfortunately, Mara really didn't resemble Rowan at all. She whispered something in Rowan's ear. Rowan's face sank, he gave me a cold look, turned around, and walked straight outside. The female assistant chased after him in her high heels, complaining, "Slow down, slow down." I watched them walk away, feeling uneasy. "Rowan, I was standing right in front of you, and you really didn't see me?" I didn't expect Rowan's mother to find me so quickly. She's never liked me, and her words were naturally harsh and critical. "As soon as you came back, Rowan ended up in the hospital." "Diana, you're a fox." My eyes darkened. Rowan was drunk? Because of me? Since returning home, Rowan has always treated me coldly and indifferently. Would he still get drunk for me? A glimmer of hope began to grow in my heart. Mabel looked at me with contempt on her lips. "Diana, with Rowan acting like that, you still feel proud of yourself?" I wasn't about to be outdone. How could I be proud? "I'm just very grateful to you, Auntie. If you hadn't told me all that, I would have thought Rowan had already given up on me. It turns out that I'm still so important to him." Mabel looked at me, hesitating to speak, unable to find a rebuttal, her face flushing red. "Diana, I really want Rowan to see your true colors." I drank the juice in my hand and smiled, "That's perfect. Rowan has been avoiding me since I got back. Call him over so we can catch up." "Shame on you. Auntie, how can someone as elegant and distinguished as you say something so shameful? Everyone has pride. Without pride, you're no different from a shameless scoundrel." She understood the subtle insinuation in my words, gripped the cup in her hand, and almost threw it in my face. But in such an elegant setting, she could only blush and dare not lose face. This round was mine. She sat up straight and looked at me. "Diana, I really don't know where you get the nerve. You took the 1 million I gave you and left just as easily. Do you think Rowan will forgive you so easily? Rowan has harbored resentment toward you for all these years. If it weren't for you, how could Rowan have ended up living such a difficult life? He gave up an opportunity for an arranged marriage for you, worked tirelessly day and night, and even nearly lost a leg. Where do you get the confidence that he still has feelings for you? I advise you, for his sake, to stay away from him. Don't hurt him anymore." Mabel finally found her former arrogance. She knew my weakness and wanted to devour me alive. This time, after hearing her words, I felt uneasy. "What did you say? What happened to Rowan's leg? Explain clearly." My thoughts had already been thrown into disarray by her statement, "He almost lost a leg." Mabel stood up and leaned over to look at me, her eyes full of sarcasm. "Don't you love him very much? Don't you know? When you left him with $1 million without even looking back, he went looking for you and got into a car accident. He was in the hospital for months. Huh, Diana, what were you doing with that $1 million? I collapsed into my seat. A car accident. No wonder he always walked strangely. Are his legs really that bad? What's happening now? I was in a complete panic and didn't even notice Mabel's meaningful glance as she left. Leaving the coffee shop, I couldn't stop worrying about him. I wanted to go to the hospital to check on him, but I realized that I had already missed the chance to contact him right away. When I got home, I didn't expect Rowan to be waiting for me at my door. I walked over, and he leaned toward me, reeking of alcohol, and suddenly hugged me tightly. Rowan. My heart was filled with his embrace. But then I remembered that he was in the hospital. How could he be drunk again? I looked up at him, but he cut me off. Rowan, are you crazy? I was filled with concern for him, but he pressed down on me, not giving me a chance to speak. That kiss was filled with so many emotions. I endured it, came to my senses, and found my eyes brimming with tears. When he finally slowly pulled away from my lips, his gaze lingered on my face, but suddenly I heard the door open behind us. I froze and turned to see Mara standing in the doorway, rubbing her eyes and calling me mommy in her baby voice. Rowan took a half step back, pressed his forehead, and the heat in his eyes gradually dissipated. Mom, why did you come back so late? Mara was scared to death. I carried Mara into the house, with Rowan following behind, silently watching us. He began to look around the room and found that there was not a single item belonging to a man. I poured him a cup of honey water to sober him up and brought him a hot towel. He refused to take it and just looked at me coldly. There are only two of you. Where is he? He's not here. Is he not around, or did you two get divorced? I saw a flash of sarcasm in his eyes. Rowan, it's not what you think. I'm not involved with him. At that moment, Mara, who had been neglected, walked over to us, dragged her limp body over to Rowan's side, and said in a babyish voice, Uncle, drink it quickly. Drinking honey water will make your head feel better. Every time my dad got drunk, my mom would coax him like this. This was followed by Rowan's cold laugh. He slowly got up from the sofa, his feet struggling to support him, and almost tripped. I watched his legs and immediately went to help him, but he pushed me away coldly. At that moment, Mara saw that there were guests at home and was very enthusiastic. She took out the photos on her phone to show off to Rowan. Uncle, look, this is my dad. Don't Mara and Dad look alike? Rowan slowly lowered her head, glanced briefly, and quickly looked away. The man in the photo had the same eyes and mouth as Mara. She hadn't noticed it before, but now looking at Mara, she could see that the girl had completely inherited all the best qualities of that man and Diana. Mara was still muttering to herself, Mom and Dad love each other very much, that's why they had such a beautiful daughter like me. I handed him the warm towel, but he ruthlessly pushed it away. After a long time, he pushed me away indifferently and looked at Mara, his eyes filled with heartbreak. Diana, if we hadn't broken up back then, our kids would be this old now. I froze for a moment. I still had a shred of hope. Diana, you're really ruthless. You know exactly how to hurt me, and you're trampling on my heart. Are you happy now that I'm broken into 1,000 pieces for you? I hurriedly grabbed him and told him that wasn't the case. But he didn't give me a chance to explain. I blurted out, Rowan, are you jealous? He looked at me deeply and turned away, leaving my house. I could see that his eyes were filled with disappointment and contempt. Everyone at the company is talking about Rowan getting engaged to his stunning assistant Ruby. Rumor has it that Ruby isn't really an assistant, but rather the daughter of the TET Group CEO who was sent to Shin Group to gain experience and learn from Rowan. Whether it's for learning or other purposes, everyone knows the truth. Did you know? Mr. Rowan hasn't dated or married anyone in all these years, and it's said it's because of his ex-girlfriend. Our Mr. Rowan is truly a romantic at heart. They say he still keeps photos of him and his ex-girlfriend in his desk drawer. Seeing the photos brings back memories. But I don't know how he suddenly got engaged to Assistant Song. I think after all these years, he must have really gotten over his ex-girlfriend. I listened to everyone's gossip in the tea room and quietly left. At that moment, the boss walked over with a document. "Diana, Mr. Rowan needs to sign this. Go to his office." I absent-mindedly took it, my mind preoccupied with Rowan's engagement. The female colleagues behind me were still gossiping. I heard that Mr. Rowan's leg was almost broken by his ex-girlfriend. Fortunately, good people are protected by heaven. However, I once accidentally saw Mr. Rowan's right leg, and it was covered with scars. It was really pitiful. When I arrived at Rowan's office, there was no sign of him. My eyes fell on his desk, and I suddenly felt like looking inside his drawer. I walked over quietly, just wanting to take a look. If it was true, as everyone said, that he had kept our photo together, even if he was engaged and there was no possibility for us, I wouldn't feel any regret. Just as I pulled open his drawer, he came out of the break room and caught me red-handed. "What are you looking at? Is it this?" He pulled open the drawer and took out the photo album. The photo album contained pictures of him and me from our college days. We were both very young and innocent back then. He was holding me loosely in his arms, and I was smiling shyly. As I looked at the photos, my eyes began to well up with tears. I could hear him whispering in my ear, "It's rare that you still remember." Then, completely unexpectedly, his lips touched mine. I stared at him in shock. But wasn't he engaged? What did he mean by this? Ruby's voice came from outside the office. "Rowan, I'm coming in." I panicked and pushed Rowan away, but he didn't seem to notice anyone outside the door. I was flustered and scrambled to crouch down and hide under his desk. Unfortunately, my hair got caught in his sleeve, so I had to pull Rowan down to sit down. My head was being pulled so hard it hurt. Outside, Ruby was discussing work with him, and the two were very professional. Suddenly, I felt a warm touch on my head. My hair was untangled from his sleeve, and his hand rubbed my scalp as if to comfort me. Outside, Ruby and his voice could still be heard. I wondered how he could act so hypocritical in front of his ex-girlfriend and fiancé. Just a few days ago, he had rejected me coldly, but now he seemed to treat me specially. They kept discussing it for half an hour without coming to a conclusion. My nervousness eased, and my gaze fell on his legs. The gossip from my coworkers was still fresh in my mind when I suddenly felt a sharp pain in my heart. I pulled up his pant leg and saw a hideous scar, ugly, running across his calf. Tears streamed down my face. How painful that must have been back then. After a long time, the office door closed again, and Ruby left the office. Rowan pulled me out from under the desk. "Why are you crying?" I choked, unable to speak clearly. "Rowan. I'm sorry. I'm sorry." I was crying so hard I couldn't catch my breath. He reached out to wipe away my tears, gently and lovingly. But even though he clearly cared deeply for me, he told me in the coldest voice possible, "Diana, I will never forgive you. The rumors about Rowan and Ruby are getting more and more serious. Someone even leaked photos of them taking wedding photos and buying rings. If I still had any illusions about Rowan, I think I would give up completely when I actually see their wedding photos." In their wedding photos, they looked so warm and perfect together. My heart ached. But after 5 years apart, I was the one who had wronged him first. How could I have the nerve to stay by his side and demand an answer from him? Fortunately, work kept me busy and distracted. This past month, as the company's legal representative, I have been extremely busy. Shin Group has been maliciously accused of product quality issues, and I have spent every day either gathering evidence or negotiating with third parties. That day, as I hurriedly left the office, I tripped over the charging cable on my desk and fell awkwardly. At that moment, Rowan and Ruby came out of the office happily, chatting and laughing. Ruby saw me sitting on the ground and was about to say something, but Rowan called her away in a cold tone. My bad mood bothered me all day, so much so that when I went to the factory to collect evidence, I scolded the workers harshly for their mistakes. It's because you don't care that the company is being gossiped about and people are finding fault with us. If something goes wrong, can you take responsibility? Diana, don't be angry, these are all minor issues that can be resolved. I didn't expect to run into an old classmate here. Hugo, what are you doing here? What a coincidence, I happen to be the manager here. Diana, if you have any questions, you can ask me. I realized that I had lost control of my emotions and smiled apologetically at him. I'm sorry. Hugo just looked at me, his eyes filled with a gentle smile. If I remember correctly, he had pursued me in college. At that moment, several workers carrying a wooden board walked over. I didn't manage to dodge it and was scraped by the board on my arm. My feet lost their balance, and I fell to the side. Just as I let out a cry, Hugo grabbed me in time, and I fell into his arms. Rowan appeared dramatically in front of us. He looked at Hugo and me, his eyes sharp as knives. Diana, is this how you work? His tone was sarcastic, as if this was his usual behavior toward me after we had met again. Mr. Rowan, you misunderstand. Just now, Diana. Hugo wanted to explain to Rowan, but the man glanced at us and didn't want to hear another word, walking away immediately. I know this man well. He never likes it when others stand by me to explain things for me, as if I were his personal property and someone else was encroaching on his territory. But now he has a fiancée. Does he still care about these things? I don't know. But when I left the factory, he pulled me into his car with a dark look on his face. Diana, don't keep pushing my limits. What, it's not working out here, so you're in a hurry to find a new place? No, I'm not. But he held me tightly and wouldn't let go. This guy has a fiancée, and just a few days ago he was keeping his distance from me. How could he do this now? I said, Rowan, Hugo and I are just old classmates. You know him too, don't you? What are you angry about? Oh, old classmate? Are you sure it's just an old classmate? At most, he liked me in the past, but that's all in the past, isn't it? Rowan's face darkened again. Past? What about me? What does that mean? Don't you have a fiancé? He finally let go of me and looked at me with cold eyes. Of course, he had a fiancé, and I was just the past to him. I opened the car door and was about to leave, but he pulled me back into the car. He held me tightly against his chest. Rowan, what do you mean? You won't forgive me, so why are you still here with me? What do you think? I don't know. The next second, his kiss landed on her lips. This was in a car, and people could come by at any moment. I struggled, and he suddenly let out a hissing sound, realizing that I was pressing down on his right leg. Seeing that he was in pain, I immediately stopped moving. A smile flashed across his eyes, and he lowered his head toward me. When it ended, I leaned against his shoulder, but I was painfully aware that what we were doing was completely unethical. Rowan, how can you do this to your fiancé? He simply followed up with a teasing remark, and how can you do this to me? I knew he would never forgive me. I said, Rowan, your leg is hurt because of me. No matter what you ask me to do, I can never repay you in this lifetime. But please don't involve anyone else. He ignored the meaning behind my words and replied in a flippant tone, then just be a good girl and pay me back slowly. Because of what he said, I knew that our relationship would remain ambiguous. He refused to talk about anything that happened 5 years ago. Whenever I mentioned Mara, he would instantly become irritable. Diana, if you want everyone to get along, don't bring up that child in front of me. I'm not interested in your past. I was torn and distressed. When I thought about 5 years ago, it was like my scars were being ripped open. After that, Rowan treated me like a secret lover. He was the envy of everyone at work, always seen with his fiancée. Yet behind closed doors, he managed to maintain his toxic relationship with me. His ambiguous treatment of me was nothing short of torture, stabbing me in the heart. Once, when I went to his office to find him, Ruby happened to be there too, and I felt a mixture of emotions. Rowan seemed to be deliberately embarrassing me by holding my hand when I handed him the documents. I panicked and looked over at Ruby, but luckily she was looking down, busy with her work. When I left, Ruby even gave me a gentle smile. How ironic. Under this ethical pressure, I finally couldn't bear the psychological stress anymore and made things clear to Rowan. Rowan, I'm sorry, but I can't do this to Ruby. She has nothing to do with us. If you want to marry her, don't treat her like this. Rowan's face darkened to the extreme, and he croaked, Diana, you're quite generous. That night, despite my repeated pleas, he dragged me from the company to his home. To be precise, it was the home that had once belonged to him and me. There, we had countless beautiful memories. Seeing the decorations in my home, exactly the same as they were 5 years ago, even the canvas shoes I wore 5 years ago were still sitting in the entranceway, I could no longer hide the emotions welling up inside me. I held him and cried uncontrollably. I said, Rowan, I'm sorry. I miss you so much. At that moment, ethics, morality, misunderstandings, and apologies were meaningless. All I knew was that I would never be able to let him go. He held me tightly and pulled me into the deepest valley. After it was over, I heard his voice, hoarse and bitter, Diana, do you know why I kept everything here? This place reminds me every moment of how foolish I was before. My heart was pierced by something sharp, and my nose stung. I said, Rowan, I've already paid back the $1 million to your mother. I'm sorry I left like that. I really had no other choice. He stopped me from explaining, let's not talk about the past. From now on, let's just leave it at that. You owe me, and you can pay me back slowly. I didn't know why Rowan always rejected my explanations like this. I thought it was because of Mara. He cared so much that Mara wasn't his child, and he had misunderstood me after all. I removed his hand, Rowan, about Mara. But he became angry again, squeezing my hand, conveying the anger in his heart. Diana, I'll say this one last time. I don't want to hear about how you're going to have children with other men. If you still have any feelings for me, don't use other men to hurt me. Then he let go of me, rolled over, got out of bed, and lit a cigarette. Outside the window, the wind whistled softly. At some point, it began to rain. I put on my clothes, sat on the edge of the bed, and felt the pain of past memories slowly enveloping my heart. I looked at his right leg exposed outside his robe and slowly said, Rowan, Mara is not my child. The cigarette I had just put in my mouth was abruptly snatched away by him. I suppressed the lump in my throat, trying not to let the memories in my mind burst forth. Mara is my sister's child. My sister. She's dead. I couldn't suppress the sadness in my heart any longer, and the sound of my sobbing broke through my throat, my nose stinging and my eyes stinging too. Inside the room, I struggled not to cry out loud. He held a burnt cigarette but between his fingers, and the atmosphere was extremely quiet. After a long time, his warm breath enveloped me again, and he wiped away my tears. His hand lingered on my cheek. Why didn't you tell me sooner? I felt helpless. Rowan, I can't get over my sister's death. I've also wanted to explain to you many times, but you always avoid talking about the past. I also feel that I don't deserve it. You're getting married, and all I can do is wish you happiness. After all, I was the one who wronged you first, and I don't want to use the past to hold you back anymore. Oh, you're always so self-righteous. He squeezed my hand hard, making it hurt. His eyes were filled with emotion. Do you know how ridiculous I feel when I look at that child? Do you know what I've been through all these years? I pulled him, feeling desperate. Don't look at me like that, Rowan. I was really pushed to the edge by your mother. I couldn't abandon my sister, and I'm sorry to you. Your mother pushed you? The $1 million you took, was that because your mother forced you? Oh, I didn't expect that after all these years, he still trusts her mother more than me. I let go of his hand and thought of her mother, who was full of hatred. I mocked myself, yeah, what mother in the world doesn't want the best for her child? The 1 million yuan she gave you was just to clear obstacles from your life and find you a suitable partner. I spoke in a strange tone, but I didn't say a word. I just thought of my own stupidity, how I was powerless and pressured by his mother. The evil factor within him also erupted at this moment. But you really don't know anything about the things your good mother did for you? I got up and left him. Rowan looked at me with a gaze full of strangeness and scrutiny. I didn't know if he was questioning me or his mother. But I was exhausted at that moment. My sister was dead, and he hadn't had an easy life all these years. How could I have had an easy life either? Rowan was about to take my hand when the phone rang. It was Mara's father, Levi. Mara has a fever and fainted. Come to the hospital quickly. I grabbed my coat and ran outside. At the hospital, Mara was hooked up to N4, but her head was still burning hot. Levi stood beside her, looking as if he had just stepped out of the shower. The doctor on duty came to check on the child and finally breathed a sigh of relief, but then he looked at Levi and me and couldn't help but scold us. A child's fever is a serious matter. How do you parents look at your child? If you had come an hour later, who knows if the child would have been burned into a fool? I finally realized the seriousness of the situation and walked over to gently stroke Mara's face. The little girl opened her eyes slightly and saw me. She weakly called out, "Mom." I knew she missed my sister again. I felt so sorry and said, "I'm sorry, Mara. I didn't take good care of you." Levi held my hand and patted it reassuringly. "It's okay, it's my fault." After settling Mara down, the weight on my heart lifted, and I remembered that Rowan had brought me to the hospital, but I had been so busy with Mara that I had neglected him. Now, no one knows where he went. He must have gone home. The next day, when I woke up, Mara and Levi were nowhere to be found in the hospital room, but there was a thermos. Inside was lean meat porridge, a familiar taste. When I was with Rowan, I had a weak stomach, and he often made it for me. Stepping out of the ward, I saw Rowan playing with Mara in the hospital's children's play area. The two looked very harmonious, with Mara clinging to his neck and whispering something to him. I walked over, and Mara saw me. A look of guilt flashed in her eyes, as if she had been caught doing something wrong. She called out in a babyish voice, "Mommy." Rowan's back stiffened. He turned and glanced at me, but was very cold toward me. I carried Mara back to the ward, and Levi came over and took her from me. Mara happily called out, "Daddy," and giggled nonstop in Levi's arms. I don't know why, but I kept feeling cold sweat on my back. When I turned around, I saw Rowan silently staring at me with a look of deep resentment. I thought maybe I was just sleepy early in the morning. A child's fever can be serious or minor. After undergoing basic tests in the morning, Mara insisted on being discharged, and the doctor processed her discharge. When Mara saw her father finally come home, she returned to her usual mischievous self. With one hand pulling me and the other holding his father, he skipped out of the hospital. Rowan stood by the hospital door, leaning against the car door, his face expressionless. At this moment, Mara looked innocent and smiled broadly as she greeted Rowan. "Uncle Rowan, my parents and I are going home. Would you like to come to our house?" When did this child become so close to him? When Rowan heard this, he actually gave Mara the warmest smile she had ever seen. As we walked past him, I warned Mara not to say anything. "Mara, Uncle Rowan has his own home." Mara continued with an innocent look on her face. "Does Uncle Rowan have a child as cute as Mara?" I couldn't help but smile, but then I remembered that he was engaged, and I smiled uncomfortably. "Uncle has a fiancée, and soon he will have a child as cute as Mara." Mara seemed lost in thought, looking a little down. Rowan looked at me with a puzzled expression. He grabbed my arm and wouldn't let me go. "Diana, let's talk." Levi spoke in a low voice. "Diana, you should go home. Mara still needs to take her medicine." Rowan's face turned dark in an instant. He ignored Levi and stared silently at me. "Diana, go with him or come with me. It's your choice." That's just how he is, aloof and cold. I just felt that Rowan was being too domineering and heartless at that moment. Does he intend to continue this ambiguous relationship with me? Does he really not care about my feelings? He has a fiancée, will get married, and have children. What am I to him? At that moment, Levi glanced at me and deliberately opposed Rowan. Diana, I plan to take Mara back to England the day after tomorrow. Mara can't be without you, so you should come back with us. Back to England? If I didn't know Levi's character, I might have really been swayed by him. Levi glanced at Rowan, then smiled reassuringly at me. Yes, Mara already thinks of you as her mother. Why don't you come back to England with us and live the happy, carefree life we used to have? This time I truly understood Levi's hidden meaning. When he saw Rowan's face blacker than black, Levi deliberately teased me with a glance, as if to say, I can only help you this far. I also had some ulterior motives. Actually, after returning to China, Rowan had been distant at times, and I really wanted to know how much I still meant to him. Then, I deliberately pretended not to notice Rowan and followed Levi's footsteps out the door. The next second, he grabbed my wrist tightly. Diana, if you want to go with him, go ahead and try. The air after the rain was still thick with moisture. When Rowan and I returned to our former home, I felt very different. Rowan no longer treated me coldly, and returning to this familiar place, I felt for the first time that I had regained something I had lost. After leaving with Rowan that day, Mara sent me a voice message, and the little girl's soft voice came through the speaker. Mom, I know you're not my real mom. Dad told me everything. After my mom passed away, you've been the one who's always been by my side. Mara feels very happy to have you. I love you very much, but Uncle Rowan also said at the hospital today that he loves you very much. I think you will be happier with Uncle Rowan. Mara will live with Dad from now on, so remember to visit Mara often, okay? Sitting on the sofa, I lifted Rowan's leg. What are you doing? Massaging your leg. Doesn't it always hurt when it rains? I had already noticed his deliberately suppressed awkward gait. People with leg injuries find it difficult to endure humid weather. He looked at me and smiled silently, letting me massage him. His body relaxed, and he leaned back on the sofa, looking at me with deep eyes that seemed to draw me in. When the massage was over, he suddenly leaned over. His whisper brushed my lips, Diana, you must not go back to England with him, or I will never forgive you. In his tender touch, I recalled that day at the factory conducting research. Hugo and I had discussed Rowan's situation. He said, Mr. Rowan is very talented and has endured many hardships. He could have relied on his family, but he chose to break free from his parents' control. He started from scratch and worked his way up. His achievements today are something that none of us can truly understand. He also said, once when we were drinking, Mr. Rowan drank so much that he almost vomited blood. He was in obvious pain and kept saying, I've tried so hard, but you still left me. What more can I do to get you back? All of us old classmates knew that he was madly in love with you. At that moment, I was already listening with tears streaming down my face. Hugo looked at me and sighed, I really don't know how you two ever broke up. And at that moment, looking at Rowan, I truly regretted it so much that I felt sick to my stomach. I pushed Rowan away. He looked up at me with a hint of displeasure, but before he could lower his head again, I stepped back. He looked at me with longing, his eyes cold. I hugged his neck and smiled, Rowan, marry me. Okay, he replied without hesitation. What about your fiancé? He came closer to me. I don't have a fiancé. I was just kidding. Ruby isn't interested in me either. Actually, I had long suspected something between him and Ruby. Ruby had no hostility toward me, sometimes she even looked at me with a playful expression. Who knows, maybe she and Rowan were deliberately testing me. I pretended to be angry, Rowan, you're doing this on purpose. He pulled my hand to his chest, unashamed, yes, I did it on purpose. You treat me like this, and I can't keep my cool. I had to pull Ruby to distract you, and she gave me a hard time. But you just kept pushing me toward her. I snuggled into his shoulder, enjoying this rare moment, and said, Rowan, I'm sorry. He rubbed my fingertips, and there was a moment of silence. Just know that. I told you, you can pay me back slowly. What about your mother? What if she doesn't agree? I don't have a good relationship with her. Don't worry about her. I'm capable of making my own decisions now. I can choose who I like and who I want to marry. My parents have no say in the matter. And just then, Mabel's phone rang. Rowan, are you with that Diana again? The phone rang, and it was Mabel scolding. Have you forgotten how she betrayed you back then? For 1 million, she was willing to leave you. Don't even think about letting that fox into our house. Enough, Mom. Is my happiness really not important to you? You dislike Diana so much. Is it because she's not good enough, or because you only care about finding someone of equal status? You know the answer yourself. 5 years ago, I didn't have the ability to refute you, but now I can make my own decisions, so don't interfere with my choices. Mabel was still berating me on the other end of the line when Rowan hung up with a dark expression on his face. I looked at my faint anger and felt uneasy. There were some misunderstandings that I think he still doesn't know about. I said, Rowan, 5 years ago, I never imagined that my sister would become so seriously ill. At that time, I couldn't wait for you to come back. You said I was being selfish and didn't consult you, and we had a cold war. When I received the news that my sister urgently needed a bone marrow transplant, I called you, but all I got was your breakup text message. A breakup text? Rowan looked skeptical. I never sent you a breakup text. Yeah, I know, that was your mom. I suppressed the resentment I still felt and said, at that time, my sister needed money urgently for her treatment. She was sick and pregnant with Mara, and the situation was critical. Levi had spent all of our savings, and I sold our house and still couldn't cover the costs. When your mother found out, she gave me $1 million to leave you. I accepted the money, but I wrote an IOU, and I paid it back over the years. Rowan, what really annoys me isn't that your mother threatened to give me $1 million to leave you, but that she deliberately tried to drive us apart while you were away. First, she sent a breakup text message using your phone, then she had someone Photoshop pictures of you and someone else and sent me your marriage certificate and wedding photos. At that time, my sister was fighting for her life every day, and I saw you with someone else. I was helpless overseas and mentally broke down, so I ended up deserting. I said, Rowan, I was so foolish. I was too impatient back then. I didn't have the courage to contact you again afterward. Rowan listened to all this, looked at me in silence for a long time, and finally spoke, Diana, have you sentenced me to death all these years just because of my mother's one-sided account? He was still angry. Rowan looked at me coldly, why didn't you come to me directly about your sister? Do you think I was too poor at the time, or that I'm someone you can easily abandon compared to your family? Rowan was being too serious. I think that was the root of the misunderstanding between them. My sister and him, how could I ever give up either of them? But in the end, I listened to his mother and didn't trust him or my feelings for him. I left him, and he got into a car accident and almost lost his leg. No matter how much I explain now, it won't matter. I am powerless. All these years, I have been afraid that he would resent me and never forgive me. I looked at him, my voice trembling, Rowan, I'm not good enough for you. From now on, take care of yourself. He could hear the evasiveness in my voice. His eyes looked at me like sharp blades, and his tone grew colder. Diana, what do you mean? Are you thinking of leaving me again? Taking Mara and that Levi and running away? Listen carefully, I disagree and will not allow it. Are your feelings for me really that fragile? It was like this before, and it's still like this now. Rowan said angrily, but I listened to his every word of reproach and couldn't hold back the tears welling up in my eyes. He acts like this, making me feel so weak and that my feelings for him are worthless. To have met him and been reunited with him again, how fortunate I am. I suddenly threw myself into Rowan's arms and said, I won't leave. I won't leave you. Even if you never forgive me, I'll never let go of your hand again. Rowan finally stopped talking. After a long time, he hugged me from behind. His tone was full of gritted teeth and warning, Diana, you owe me. Don't you dare leave me again.